African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. We have a jam-packed show today. It's been a lot going on in the news, and also we know that we have the Senate runoff races in Georgia. You know, we've been talking about that for the past few weeks also, and have been posting about that as well. Well, we see that in the case of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we see that the district attorney today, Mike Gravely, announced that there would be Michael Gravely announced that there would be no charges against the officer Rustin Shesky, who shot Jacob Blake 7 times. And there was a press conference today. There's been a lot of discussion about this. Georgetown law professor Paul Butler was on MSNBC today, speaking on Deadline White House with Nicole Wallace. We're going to share that discussion with you. There's a good article from NBCnews.com. No charges filed against Kenosha officers in Jacob Blake shooting. No charges filed against Kenosha officers in Jacob Blake shooting from NBCnews.com. I've read that article twice. And then, we've been covering this case from the beginning when it took place August 23rd, 2020. Then also there is a good article as well from the Washington Post entitled "No Charges to be Filed Against Kenosha Police Officer Who Shot Jacob Blake." This is from the Washington Post. All right. So we'll talk some about this case. I know on Roland Martin Unfiltered, they talked about it as well. And I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered this Friday. I'm usually a panelist on Fridays. So I don't know if we're going to discuss it when I'm on this show this Friday, but we'll see. Okay, so we have that taking place. This is a very, very busy news day. So we have that taking place with Jacob Blake. We have the Georgia Senate runoff races as well. And we'll talk about 5 things to watch in the Georgia Senate runoff races. But also, the past couple of days, on our Sunday night show, and then also on a Monday show, we dealt with some of the history behind the Georgia Senate runoff races. And they're rooted in racism. Okay, the reason why you have Senate runoff races and runoff races statewide in Georgia is to lock African Americans out of political power. Okay, to lock African Americans out of political power. This is what this is all about. There was an article from Channel 11 Alive in Georgia. Channel 11 Alive in Georgia that deals with this history. Okay. And this goes back to a Georgia state representative named Denmark Groover. And in 1963, it was ruled that the way that they were having the runoff races, the statewide races, et cetera, was unconstitutional. So then they came up with another way to lock African Americans out of political power. Okay, they came up with another way to lock African Americans out of political power, and these were the runoff races. And it's designed so that if African Americans voted for if they coalesced their voting power behind one African American candidate, and then you had 2 white people running and they split the white vote, this was designed to give white people a do-over, so then they could coalesce their votes behind the one white candidate, regardless of political parties. Okay, and lock African Americans out of statewide political power. And I we dealt with this the past couple of days. I'm not sure how many people really caught on to what I was talking about. But if you look at the November 3rd race, Reverend Raphael Warnock beat Kelly Loeffler. Reverend Raphael Warnock got 32.9% of the vote. He got like 1.6 million votes compared to about 1.2 million from that Senator Kelly Loeffler got. Okay, so this is rooted in racism. So we have to understand this. And you're talking about Georgia, which is a former Confederate state also. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And I posted an article. So the name of the article from Channel 11 Alive, and we're going to play that clip again, because see, this ties into understanding history and how history and historical events impact us today. So a lot of people, and usually people who benefit from your oppression, want to say, oh, that was a long time ago. Oh, things are different now. Okay, well, you have to understand that a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community. What happened in the past impacts us directly today. And then also what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so when we look at the attempt, and then that deals with the call from Donald Trump to the Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on Saturday, January 2nd, trying to overturn the votes of people in Georgia, especially African Americans in Georgia. This is what this deals with. And then we understand racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. So when we look at the article from Channel 11 Alive, it's called "Runoffs Arose to Limit Power of Black Voters in Georgia, Much of South Experts Say." Runoffs arose to limit power of Black voters in Georgia, much of South experts say. That's from November 9th, 2020. Okay, from 11alive.com, channel11alive.com there in Georgia, right in the Atlanta area. So there was an article from January 5th. And I posted this morning on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, also on our Instagram page as well, Michael Imhotep on Instagram. Kelly Loeffler's new Facebook ad darkens skin of Raphael Warnock, her Black opponent. Kelly Loeffler's new Facebook ad darkens skin of Raphael Warnock, her Black opponent. The campaign spent 10 times as much boosting the ad as it did on another ad the same day that used untouched clips. And this deals with this ad that ran on Facebook from Senator Kelly Loeffler, okay, who actually her term has expired January 3rd, because January 3rd, Sunday, January 3rd, 2021, the 117th Congress was sworn in. So her term is technically expired. But this dealt with this Facebook ad where Raphael Warnock's skin was darkened, and people suspect this is done to make him look more sinister and scare white people away. You know, same old tricks. This is an article from salon.com. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we see that Donald Trump is trying to pressure Vice President Mike Pence to overturn once again the election results. And Pence is telling them, look, I don't have the authority to do that, because Pence presides over the vice president, presides over January 6th, the confirming by Congress of the votes that were confirmed that the Electoral College voted on. New York Times has this piece. Trump says Pence can overturn his loss in Congress. That's not how it works. This is Donald Trump is probably like the dumbest person I've seen in political office. He has no understanding of the U.S. Constitution. Trump says Pence can overturn his loss in Congress. That's not how it works. And Pence is telling him, I can't do that. The vice president plays a crucial but largely ceremonial role in formalizing the election results in Congress. This is a piece by Mike Schmidt for New York Times. The vice president doesn't have the authority to overturn the election results from the Electoral College and the will of the people. His role is ceremonial. Somebody made the analogy. It's like at the Academy Awards, at the Oscars, the person reading who won the Oscar category doesn't have the authority to say, oh, Purple Rain won. Oh, Tyler Perry won. They don't have that authority to change who won. It's already voted on. It's already decided. This is just perfunctory. It's ceremonial. Donald Trump on Tuesday escalated his efforts to force Vice President Mike Pence to overturn President-elect Joseph R. Biden's victory, falsely asserting that VP Mike Pence had the power to unilaterally throw out electoral votes on Wednesday, January 6th, when Congress meets to certify the election results. And Trump tweeted this. Pence doesn't have that authority, but there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution or the law that explicitly gives a vice president that power. An age close to Vice President Mike Pence, who concede that he is facing a politically perilous moment, are convinced he will follow the normal procedures and confirm Vice President Joe Biden's election. Because Pence is going to follow the Constitution. Pence is going to follow the Constitution. Trump's trying to stay out of prison. Trump is, and there'll probably be charges at the state level in Georgia for that little phone call he made on January 2nd. Keep in mind, it was a phone call in 2019, the July 25th, 2019 phone call to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, trying to pressure Vladimir Zelensky to launch an investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden to hurt Joe Biden in the presidential election. The one candidate that Trump feared the most is who he ended up having to run against and who beat him. And then there's another phone call, January 2nd, 2021, that Trump made to try to overturn the election results of the candidate that he feared the most. Very interesting. This is karma that's about to come back on Trump. So all this got exposed. He didn't know he was being recorded. How dumb can you be? So we have those stories. And then on Monday's show, how's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. And we're coming up here on the break. When we come back from the break, we're going to jump into the story dealing with Jacob Blake and break this down as much as we can here in this 1 hour that we have. We see TMZ is reporting that Dr. Dre is in Los Angeles in the ICU after suffering a brain aneurysm. And then the BlackAmericaWeb.com, well, TMZ first reported the story. BlackAmericaWeb.com picked up the story also, as well as Huffington Post, Black Voices. Los Angeles Times has a story here. Dr. Dre admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after signs of possible brain aneurysm. Dr. Dre was undergoing medical treatment. Dr. Dre was undergoing medical treatment Tuesday after being admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with a possible brain aneurysm. Two sources familiar with his condition said the legendary rap artist and producer turned music mogul was considered to be in stable condition at the Los Angeles hospital after undergoing testing, according to one of the sources who asked not to be named because the person was not authorized to discuss the medical matter. Now we know Dr. Dre is 55 years old. His real name is Andre Young. Rose to fame with NWA from the streets of Compton and went on to become a top producer and co-founder of Beats Electronics, a venture that turned him into a billionaire. After TMZ revealed that Dr. Dre was hospitalized, NWA co-founder Ice Cube tweeted, "Send your love and prayers. Send your love and prayers." Has Ice Cube talked about Trump trying to overturn the election results and disenfranchise African-American voters? Has Ice Cube talked about this at all? I'm just curious. Speaking of disenfranchising African-American voters, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund responds to Trump's last-ditch attempt to disenfranchise Black Georgia voters. Now, we on the Monday night show, we talked about the statements from Derek Johnson. We talked about the statements from Derek Johnson, CEO of the NAACP, dealing with Donald Trump's phone call. ABCnews.com has a good article dealing with this that we talked about on Monday's show. NAACP calls on Georgia District Attorney to investigate Trump call. Trump asked the Georgia official to find 11,780 votes to overturn results. And NAACP president and CEO Derek Johnson has made statements on that, and he's calling on the Fulton County District Attorney to investigate Donald Trump's little weekend call to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Now, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund is weighing in on this as well. So we'll discuss this on the other side of the break, and we'll talk about the Jacob Blake case as well. And then also we see that for the January 6th, we see for the January 6th congressional vote, we see that the National Guard is mobilizing in Washington, D.C. as well, ahead of anti-Trump, ahead of pro-Trump protesters. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation and Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. We got a busy show tonight. How's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in as well. The Georgia runoff race is very close. Georgia runoff race is very close. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll talk more about those results on our show tomorrow. And let's see, last night's show was 2 hours, supposed to be an hour. Then the show Sunday night was 3 hours, supposed to be 2 hours. I'm tired. I'm trying to keep this to an hour 15 minutes. That's it. I'm not trying to do 2 hours tonight. Okay, so we've got Ann, Leah. How you doing, Leah? Laverl. Happy New Year, everybody. All right, hey, if you like this type of information, you could donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. One commercial break. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Station. We'll be back in a couple minutes here. Okay, so there's a lot I wanted to talk about tonight, but I'm trying to condense all this into 1 hour. So there's some stories we have to deal with Wednesday night because there's so much going on. And, I want to make sure I cover these topics and give enough time to them. But some of the stuff we have to just do tomorrow. All right, let's see who we have. We got John Moore, Yakula, bless the African Congo. All right, down in the Congo. You're in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Okay, Decatur, Wendy in Decatur. She's in North Carolina now. I can't believe Trump. Believe him. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. Happy New Year once again, everybody. We made it to the new year. Okay, that was the first task, make it through 2020. Now, everybody's waiting on January 20th, 2021. January 20th can't come here soon enough. I wish I could hibernate till noon on January 20th, 2021, till this fool leaves the White House. Okay. All right. So, hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So it helps support the African History Network show, helps us keep broadcasting. We're here 6 nights a week as well, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time as of October 12th. And then we're still on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time also. We've been in that 9 p.m. time slot for 4 years now. And then let's see, March 10th will be 11 years of me broadcasting the African History Network show. March 10th, 2021. In April will be 5 years of me broadcasting the African History Network show here on 910 AM, the Superstation WFDF, okay, in Detroit. So before COVID, normally you would see me at the radio station studio, okay? But because of COVID and stay-at-home orders and things like this from Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the radio station has the host broadcasting from home, which is all right with me because I have a studio already here. So I don't have to drive to the radio station. So it works out well for me. I don't know anybody else. I don't know about anybody else, but it's fine with me. Okay. I am not complaining. All right. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, so let's look at this first story here. No charges filed against Kenosha officers in Jacob Blake shooting. Even before announcing his findings, the Kenosha County District Attorney pleaded for peace. Okay, now I didn't expect charges to be filed. One is Wisconsin. Two is a white district attorney. Three, when I heard him pleading for peace, ahead, and National Guard was already mobilized, things like this, I already knew they weren't going to charge these officers with anything. Okay. But it's a good article from NBCnews.com. No charges filed against Kenosha officers in Jacob Blake shooting. So the police officers involved in the shooting of Jacob Blake, which touched off days of civil unrest this past summer in Wisconsin, will not face any criminal charges, authorities said Tuesday. Now, Jacob Blake, who's African-American, was struck by 7 bullets at close range on August 23rd, 2020, as he walked away from Kenosha police officer Rustin Sheskey, S-H-E-S-K-E-Y, Rustin Sheskey, who had answered a domestic disturbance call. Now, Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely told reporters that Officer Rustin Sheskey and other officers would have had a strong case for self-defense. He said, quote, "If you don't believe you can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, you have an ethical obligation not to issue charges," end quote. He said at a press conference on Tuesday, January 5th. Now, I watched some of that press conference and I heard his explanations, things like this. Now, there's some there are some things that make the case a little complicated. But to me, he sounded more like a defense attorney for the police officers as opposed to a district attorney. I mean, to me, I may be biased because I've studied numerous dozens of police shooting cases, things like this. I've been reporting on this for years. But to me, I saw the press conference. He sounded more like a defense attorney for the police officers. Now, Jacob Blake's family attorney, Benjamin Crump, said that Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely wrongfully denied the community its chance to try the facts at trial. Benjamin Crump said, quote, "We are immensely disappointed in Kenosha District Attorney Michael Gravely's decision not to charge the officers involved in this horrific shooting." Benjamin Crump said in a statement, quote, "We feel this decision failed not only Jacob and his family, but the community that protested and demanded justice." Now, even before his findings, Kenosha District Attorney Michael Gravely pleaded for peace. Quote, can moments of tragedy like this be an opportunity to build things, he said. The shooting left Jacob Blake paralyzed below the waist, according to his family. Now, police responded to a call of a domestic incident near 2840th Street on early Sunday evening in late August 23rd, 2020, officials said. Kenosha police officers are not equipped with body cameras. Okay, Kenosha police officers are not equipped with body cameras. Not sure why. Maybe it's a budget thing, but they need body cameras. But a bystander captured the confrontation that appeared to show Jacob Blake walking away and about to get into the driver's side of his SUV when Officer Rustin Shesky opened fire. Now, we know there was a tussle before we saw him walking to his car. Okay, so it's a continuation of something we understand that is true. We know that tasers were used previously. They didn't work. That is true. But, you know, the other thing, I've seen footage of white men with knives, you know, wielding knives against police, and they didn't get shot. I'm just, you know, to me, the force was excessive to be shot 7 times. And as the district attorney said, he was shot 3 times in the side and 4 times in the back. To me, that just seems excessive. You know. So Kenosha police are not equipped with cameras. And we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute here. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So the officers did not have body cameras. A bystander captured the confrontation that appeared to show Blake walking away and about to get into the driver's side of his SUV when Officer Shesky opened fire. And he's grabbing his shirt. He's walking away. Okay. According to a bystander who was recording, Rayshawn White, the bystander who shot the video, he said he heard police saying, "Drop the knife." Okay. But he said he never saw Blake armed with any blade. Now, according to the prosecutor, Michael Gravely, he said Blake had a knife. Now, Shesky and his fellow officer, Vincent Arenas, both used tasers on Blake, but could not stop him, authorities said. Jacob Blake was near a knife when he was shot, state prosecutors have said, and a blade was found in the footwell of his vehicle. But Rayshawn White, the bystander who shot the video, said he heard police yelling, "Drop the knife." But he said he never saw Blake armed with any blade. The district attorney said the video did not capture multiple attempts to arrest Blake prior to the shooting. So this was a continuation of an altercation that was going on. Quote, multiple officers tried to grab his arms and try to secure him so he can be cuffed. He admits at one point, quote, officers were trying to handcuff me, but I was able to get up, end quote. This is so Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely is saying that Jacob Blake admitted, quote, officers were trying to handcuff me, but I was able to get up, end quote. Now, District Attorney Gravely said officers had no choice but to arrest Jacob Blake and prevent him from leaving with a car or the children of LaQuisha Booker, who has 3 kids with him. And once police officers learned there's a warrant for Jacob Blake's arrest, his arrest became a paramount priority, the prosecutor said. Now, Prosecutor Gravely said multiple times Tuesday that it was, quote unquote, incontrovertible that Blake had a knife, or indisputable that Blake had a knife in hand when the incident occurred, and that Jacob Blake admitted to getting a knife. Officer Rustin Shesky told investigators that he was unsure whether Jacob Blake was going to kidnap or hurt the children in the car. Quote, Officer Shesky knows that so this is Michael Gravely, Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely. He said, quote, Officer Shesky knows that an armed man with a felony warrant was who just forcefully resisted arrest appears to be about to flee in a disputed vehicle. And there's at least one child in the back. Those are all the facts that Officer Shesky has in the context of a domestic abuse case at the point he has to decide what to do next. End quote. Now, the district attorney cited an opinion from former Madison Police Chief Noble Ray, W-R-A-Y, Noble Ray, who was hired as an independent consultant for prosecutors. He was hired as an independent consultant for prosecutors, that said it was a reasonable decision to engage in force with Jacob Blake based on the information that Officer Rustin Shesky had at the time. Now, the prosecution would also face difficulty with witness testimony, including from Jacob Blake himself, according to Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely. The district attorney said that while Jacob Blake told investigators he was sure while Jacob Blake told the district attorney said that while Jacob Blake told investigators he was not sure if he opened his knife, and that it would have been, quote unquote, just stupid to pull a knife on a cop. A similar incident from 2010 involving Jacob Blake would likely be used against him in a trial. So that 2010 incident, Jacob Blake exited a vehicle and brandished a 3-inch knife at Cook County Sheriff's officers who were conducting a traffic stop, according to both Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely and a police report given to NBC News by the Cook County Sheriff's Office. A judge later dropped charges against Jacob Blake in the incident. Now, this is back in 2010. This is a 2010 case. A judge later dropped charges against Jacob Blake in the incident. Quote, it in no way would be able to demonstrate to you folks that he acted in conformity. This is 10 years ago, District Attorney Michael Gravely said. He went on to say, quote, but he would be subject to an absolutely devastating cross-examination that a jury would hear about an incident where he did display a knife, And if he denied any of those things, he would be shown the police reports, end quote. Well, that's why you have your attorney prep you for cross-examination. That's the job of your attorney, to prep you for cross-examination. See, once again, when I'm listening to Kenosha County prosecutor Michael Gravely, and he sounded more like a defense attorney for the police officers. That's something that Jacob Blake's attorneys would prep him for cross-examination. Investigators also had a difficult time obtaining a statement from Booker, who would have been a key witness in any prosecution against Officer Shesky. Prosecutor Michael Gravely said, while it was previously believed that Jacob Blake was shot 7 times, and this is on page 6 of this article from NBC News, further examination of Jacob Blake's medical records found that he had 3 entrance wounds on his left side and 4 shots to his back. 3 entrance wounds to his left side and 4 shots to his back, according to prosecutor Michael Gravely. So it appears he was shot 7 times, 3 times in the side, 4 times in the back. The district attorney said that while it's, quote, absolutely appropriate, end quote, to ask whether 7 shots is excessive, Officer Shesky said that he continued to fire until the quote unquote threat stopped as part of his training. A defense attorney would argue that Officer Shesky followed his training and that the shots to the back were because Jacob Blake turned away, Kenosha County prosecutor Michael Gravely said. Quote, now we have no way of determining which of these 7 shots come when now we have no way of determining which of those 7 shots come when, so we don't know the order. Right? I'm suggesting to you simply that there is a rationale or there is a rational, logical scenario that anyone defending this case along for these officers would be able to use this physical evidence I'm describing to be able to persuasively tell a jury, end quote. But when you shoot, now it is true that police officers usually are trained to shoot until the threat stops. Not until somebody's dead, but until the threat stops. But you also have to assess the situation as you're shooting. So do you stop shooting when your clip in when you empty your clip? Do you stop shooting when you empty your gun? You also have to assess the situation to determine whether you have to keep shooting. You also have to assess the situation. Do you stop? Let me give you an example. Officer Jason Van Dyke, when he shot and killed Laquan McDonald. He shot Laquan McDonald like 15, 16 times. He emptied his clip. He was about to reload, and his partner stopped him. It didn't seem like he assessed the situation, because Laquan McDonald, after the first 2 shots, Laquan McDonald was down on the ground. So it is true that officers are trained to shoot until the threat stops. How do you assess when the threat stops? How do you assess when they're no longer a threat? Do you keep shooting until you empty your clip? Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to line 1. Who we have? Is this Larry? Line 1. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from, Larry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks for holding, Larry. Tell us where you're calling from.
What up, though, man? I'm calling from Detroit.
Okay, from Detroit. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So here we go, bro. This is Mike, also known as Super Racide. I don't know if you had any problems with taking my call. There's a lot of people that play or hate on me on 9, 10 a.m., but it's all good, bro. So here's the thing about the police officers, bro. Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the vice president, young lady, they're going to have to be the ones to make this thing right with these police officers. It's a pyramid. Every state that you go to, it's a pyramid that has to be conquered and broken down. It's not, of course, it's not not just the police officers. It's those executives, those attorney generals, and their cronies, and all of their people in every state. So there's like a little maze, a little pyramid in every state that has to be figured out and conquered, and it has to be done. We got to get to the bottom of this situation, and the powers that be. And then it's going to take even more powerful. It's going to take athletes. It's going to take Puff Daddy. It's going to take LeBron James, Magic Johnson, all of them to help out too as well.
Okay.
We're going to have to do it state by state. Tackle, get to the maze, the pyramid of how these cops are getting away with it. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many people that's in power in each one of these states that have to be figured out.
That's at the state legislature level. That's at the state legislature and the governor. But all right, thanks for your call. Who we have next, Shakita? Who we have next? Do we have still Larry, or we have Cosmic? Who we have? Whoever's next, just go ahead and put them on. Oh, no callers. Okay. All right. So most of the control over policing is at the state level, not the federal level. You do need there are changes that need to take place at the federal level. That's and that's what those are some of the things that the George Floyd and Police and Justice Act addresses. That has to pass both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. It passed the House. It then passed the Senate. That's why the Senate races in Georgia are so important, because it died in the Senate. The bill that the Republicans were pushing in the Senate is a much weaker bill. Okay. But the majority of control over policing is at the state level. That's why state legislatures and governors are so important, because you need the governor to sign the bill into law. So we've had entertainers and things like this involved, but it's lawmakers that change laws. Entertainers can agitate, but you got to understand it's at the state level and federal. Now, the Department of Justice can play a role when it comes to investigating patterns and practices into police departments. Trump administration has stopped that. They've only done one investigation. And when under the Obama administration, there were 25 investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments. Donald Trump ran on law and order, and he ran on unshackling police. And the Trump administration has reversed a lot of the criminal justice reform measures the Obama administration put in place. This is what I was talking about 2016. I'm like, how you talking about not voting, and Trump is going to reverse the criminal justice measures that the Obama administration put in place? Mike Pence on the campaign trail in 2016 said that he and Donald Trump think there's too much talk about implicit bias in policing, and they didn't want to deal with that. You see that Trump nominated Attorney General William Barr, who doesn't believe systemic racism exists in policing. Donald Trump's first Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he was the one that stopped the investigations into the police departments. Basically, they stopped it. There's only been one under the Trump administration. Okay, and I think we're freezing up here. There's basically been only one under the Trump administration. All right, I want to go to before we totally run out of time. I want to go to this clip here. This is from MSNBC. This is from MSNBC from Nicole Wallace, Deadline, White House. And what we're going to do, Shakita, for the sake of time, let's go to, we're going to start at the 24-minute mark. Let me see, with We'll start at the 29-minute mark. That's Paul Butler. Georgetown law professor Paul Butler was on Deadline White House today talking about this case and talking about the decision from the prosecutor. Okay. Let's go to this clip.
I want to bring into our conversation my colleague, the Reverend Al Sharpton. He's the host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and the president of the National Action Network. And I know you've been in touch with the Blake family since this happened. Have you talked to them today?
Oh, you know what? Hey, Shakita, I'm sorry. Ohio. Go back to the 24-minute mark. Start at the 24-minute mark, and then we'll go to Reverend Al. Start at the 24-minute mark. We'll start there. So Georgetown law professor Paul Butler weighed in on this case, and he's a former federal prosecutor as well. Okay, so it's good to hear a legal opinion as opposed to people just talking on social media have no clue what the hell they're talking about. Let's go to this clip.
Being set that a police officer can have a suspect's shirt in his hand and fire 8 shots, and no legal lines have been crossed.
Indeed, there is a standard being set, a standard of miscarriage of justice. Once again, another example of African Americans not receiving equal protection of law. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, and now Jacob Blake. Because we have a man shot 7 times in the back while his 3 children are watching. Mr. Blake was unarmed at the time that he was shot. So the district attorney's options range from attempted murder to reckless endangerment to assault. And here we have, once again, no legal consequences. So when you ask whether this sets a standard, criminal prosecutions are expressive. They're designed to deter future misconduct and to demonstrate respect for the humanity and dignity of victims. But when prosecutors fail to bring charges, that's expressive as well. What it means is that in the eyes of the government, what happened to Mr. Blake is not a crime. That someone can be shot in the back 7 times in front of their children while unarmed, and the person who did the shooting suffers no criminal consequences.
It seems that when you see the police officer holding Jacob Blake's T-shirt, he has control of Jacob Blake's body when he shoots him 7 times. Can you explain what that could usher in, that someone could literally be holding someone while they shoot them in front of their children?
So no cases against police officers are easy, and most do not result in convictions for murder or attempted murder. What was different about this case is that Mr. Jacob was shot in the back. It's harder for the officer to make the case that he reasonably feared for his life, which is the legal standard. We also know that none of the other officers on the scene discharged their weapons, and that supports an inference that this officer may have been trigger happy. And then we have that harrowing videotape. When you watch that tape, you see a black man being hunted down by a police officer with a gun, and you don't see that man posing any threat. You could believe your own eyes.
Paul Butler, Gabe only made an oblique reference to it, but obviously Jacob Blake's shooting ushered in extremist violence in the streets. Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante who was celebrated by some right-wing hosts, took to the streets and acquired a weapon and strolled past police after fatally shooting other people in a melee, in a protest. What do we know about what impressions people of Kenosha may have from all of these events?
Well, the accurate impression from these 2 events is that in Kenosha, Wisconsin, as in too many places around this country, there are 2 different sets of law. One for people of color, and especially African Americans, and another for police officers. And too frequently, police officers are held above the law. They don't have to follow the same rules as everybody else. If there's any encouraging news, it's that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, as candidates, met with Mr. Blake's family, and they expressed their outrage. And upon assuming the power of the presidency, they have the opportunity to make a difference. So far, we haven't seen any change despite this national reckoning. American cops kill about 1,000 people every year. They killed about 1,000 people in 2020. The Biden administration can get back in the business of civil rights. It can bring pattern and practice investigations against local police officers. The Obama administration brought 25 different investigations against local police departments. The Trump administration brought one.
Wow. That is just staggering, and it's a conversation that we will continue. Paul Butler, thank you.
Hey, pause it right there.
I want to bring
Pause
into
it right
our
there,
conversation
Shakita.
my colleague.
We're going to go back there in just a second. I know we run out of time. The Obama administration had more investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments than any previous administration. It led to either 14 or 15 consent decrees. The Trump administration has had one investigation, and they've taken a hands-off approach to policing. And this is one of the first things that Jeff Sessions, Donald Trump's first attorney general, did, because Jeff Sessions was totally against police reform and criminal justice reform. And then when Jeff Sessions became attorney general, he tried to back out of the consent decrees that the Department of Justice entered into under the Obama administration, entered into with the Chicago Police Department and the Baltimore Police Department. But a federal judge would not allow the Department of Justice under Jeff Sessions to back out of the agreement. Okay, so you have to understand the difference between the approaches of the two administrations. The Trump and see, when you go back and research Black Lives Matter law, people think that was Obama that signed it into law. No, that was Trump. That was 2018. Because Trump ran, part of his platform was this war against police. And back in 2016, Trump was saying that, and you had police unions, things like this. They were saying there's a war against police, and they were blaming the Black Lives Matter movement and the Obama administration about a war against police. The Blue Lives Matter law was signed into law in 2018 by Trump. That was not Obama. So you got to research this stuff. Okay, let's go back to this clip quickly. I think we got like 2 minutes left in the show. Here's Reverend Al Sharpton weighing in on it. Do we have the clip?
Reverend Al Sharpton. He's the host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and the president of the National Action Network. And I know you've been in touch with the Blake family since this happened. Have you talked to them today?
I literally am landing from Columbus, Ohio, having done a eulogy at another police victim, Andre Hill, and the family attorney, Ben Crump, was with me. I'm literally in the airport just landing back. And he's on his way to Kenosha. I'll probably be going to tomorrow. This is an outrage, even though it's expected. And the local district attorney was not going to do anything, Nicole. I think this puts further energy to the civil rights leaders who met with President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris to have an attorney general who is committed to having proper policing. I said in that meeting, I prefer the black attorney general, but at least have one that has a background in civil rights and in police reform. And this puts further pressure, since they have not announced an attorney general, that they appoint someone that's sensitive to this time. I just preached a funeral 2 hours ago in Columbus, Ohio, where a man shot unarmed several times with a policeman that had 90 complaints against him. Now we get this decision in Kenosha. A man shot on tape 7 times in the back, and the local prosecutor sees no misuse of force.
Okay.
It is on.
All right, pause it right there, Shakita. We're out of time here. So everybody watching us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting. We're out of time here on 910 AM, the Superstation. If you'd like this type of information, donate to the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App and paypal.me/the AHN Show through PayPal, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Let me disconnect this call here. All right, we're going to go back to the rest of that clip here. Let me pull that up. This is from Deadline White House. You can listen to the podcast of the show, the full podcast of the show, because they only have a clip of the interview. But if you go to msnbc.com, search for Deadline White House. Well, it's right up at the top where they have the names of the different shows. Deadline White House. This is from the January 5th, 2021 edition of Deadline White House. And when that page comes up for Deadline White House, you can just click on, I think it says audio or podcast, one of them. And you can listen to the actual podcast of the show. Okay. And you don't have to have cable to do that either. All right, let me go back to we're at 29 minutes. We're at 29. Okay, let's go to back to this clip.
Attorney General, that they appoint someone that's sensitive to this time. I just preached a funeral 2 hours ago in Columbus, Ohio, where a man shot unarmed several times. With a policeman that had 90 complaints against them. Now we get this decision in Kenosha. A man shot on tape 7 times in the back, and the local prosecutor sees no misuse of force. It is on this incoming administration to redeem proper policing in this country. I think they will live up to it, and I think that they will show us what policing should be about. When you compare the policing task force that we had under Obama that brought several investigations with the Trump administration that didn't do any, I think that you see why many of us are saying change was needed. What happened to Jacob Blake Jr., who did live, but was clearly wounded, 7 shots in the back, and compare those that have been killed like Andre Hill, it's time for us to deal with the issue of policing in this country in a fair and just way. They're bracing for whether there will be violence tonight, and certainly we hope and don't condone any violence. But what about the violence that happened to Jacob Blake Jr.? To be shot in the back is violence. You don't need to wait on violence. You need to do something about the police violence that has already occurred unjustifiably.
Rev, obviously you were the first person we wanted to talk to, and a lot of people around the country have sought you out all summer. We covered your eulogies at George Floyd's funeral and others. And I wonder what you want to say to people who are just feeling re-traumatized and feeling all the pain and all the anger and don't have the patience maybe for all of that policy work that you just articulated. What do you want to say to them about what they do in the next 12 hours?
I want to say to them that the outrage and anger all of us feel. But the question is that if we just vent our anger and not really do something that is going to permanently stop this, we're going to go from one funeral to the next and not get justice. So to just vent and show our anger will play into the hands of those that don't want to see fundamental change. We must be strategic enough to channel our anger into real change. As I said, during Christmas, we saw, during the holiday season, we saw more police shootings. I just left a funeral where a family is burying another victim today of an unarmed man. They that oppose us do not care if we become violent. It only helps to justify their position to say, oh, we were afraid. What they care about is for us to put people in power and hold them accountable that will change the laws where police are accountable as anyone else. We're not anti-police. We're anti-bad policing. We're anti-violent policing. And we cannot let our anger drive the agenda. We must let the righteousness of our cause drive the agenda. So the Blakes of this world and the Floyds of this world get justice, and we stop having to go from one episode of this injustice to another. This local district attorney is representative of many local authorities around this country. That's why we need federal laws like the George Floyd Policing and Justice Act, and we need federal oversight of policing, which we had started with consent decrees under the last administration. It was eliminated under the Trump administration. We need Biden and Harris to bring this country back on a course of mutual respect for life, for police and for citizens, and not where you have a society where people can be shot in the back by police. That didn't even happen in the Wild, Wild West. They can be shot in the back, and the local prosecutors say, experts say, that was justified. It wouldn't have been justified, as I said, in the Wild, Wild West. Why is it justified in Kenosha?
Rev, I can't wait for the day when we're not tracking you down in an airport where you've just landed from delivering one eulogy to talk to you about another painful and tragic event. Thank you, though, for making time for us and for finding a place to talk to us. We're really grateful.
All right. Thank you.
We're going to sneak in a break. Let me tell you what's coming.
Okay. All right. So check out that. That's from Deadline White House, MSNBC. And actually, now that we're in overtime and I control the time, we can go back and start at the 17-minute mark. That's where I really wanted to start. But for the sake of time, because we only have an hour on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, we started with Paul Butler, who comes on at the 24-minute mark. There was another outlet. Let me see who else picked this up. There was an outlet that picked up that did a write-up of Paul Butler's segment, and that's I'll give you that information in just a second. I'm waiting for that to load up on the second computer. Let's go back to Deadline White House, and you're going to hear the Kenosha District Attorney Michael Gravely for a couple minutes. Let's go back to this clip.
And we ask all of you to stand by. News has just broken that Kenosha County, Wisconsin's district attorney has announced no charges will be filed against any of the police officers, anyone involved in the shooting of Jacob Blake, an unarmed black man shot 7 times by officers last August. It's a shooting that left him paralyzed from the waist down. Let's listen into that news conference underway.
Will be identified in a final slide here, and they'll both be available at 5 o'clock today. In addition, Noble Ray, the independent use of force expert, has drafted a report with all of his findings. That also will be available at that time. So now I intend to talk about what steps were taken specifically by the DA's office to prepare for this investigation, and then finally what our conclusions are about the law and the evidence in this case. As soon as I saw the video, and shared the same emotional reactions that I think so many people in the public did at my first viewing of the circumstances of the video that certainly went viral immediately. I knew at that time that we needed to do the most independent charging decision and investigative process that could possibly be done. And at the very first moment I learned that, I called on the U.S. Attorney's Office to do a parallel civil rights investigation that would be a separate investigation and conclusion and findings from our own. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office has civil rights specialists who prosecute and make charging decisions about officers and any misconduct. So they have specialists who do that. They work out of their Washington, D.C. office. They did agree that they would do an investigation. I know that is going on, and I invite you to contact that office to find out what their status is. I know they are attempting to get to a point where they're able to make charging decisions as well. Kenosha deserves a second legal opinion other than my own. I'm confident about the things I'm talking about today, but I believe that the healing process begins or is improved by an opportunity for members of the public to see other prosecuting agencies make decisions, even though their laws are.
Stand by just a second here. What happened to the, I think it's
somewhat and slightly different. The other thing I did, and I think this is an unprecedented thing in the state of Wisconsin. I don't think this has ever been done before. I asked the Wisconsin Attorney General to select for this particular case a use of force expert who I had nothing to do with hiring. So I asked them to find someone so that there would be a truly and completely independent expert on issues of police training and on issues of whether the use of force in this case was reasonable. And the way I did that was I asked them to select the person without me having any input. And what the Attorney General did was he asked Noble Ray, who's with me today, who accepted. And I knew Noble Ray's name. I knew him as a national and state spokesperson for police reform and talking about bias in policing, and a person who had spent, after a long career at the Madison Police Department, his second career was trying to be a voice on those issues on a national level. When I first had my contact with Noble Ray, had never spoken to him in my life, had never met him in person in my life until after the selection was made. My first conversation with him was about how I wanted in no way to influence the decision he came to about the matters that mattered in this case. And I told him, no matter what you conclude, we're going to publish that. That will be an independently formed opinion. I won't have any influence, and you will be allowed to put anything you want in there, and I will invite you to offer any opinions.
We just want to tell all of you what you're listening to. That's the Kenosha, Wisconsin District Attorney. He has told us that it will take him 1 hour to explain the decision, but we will underscore what the decision is. The decision is that no charges will be brought against the police officer or any of the police officers involved in the shooting of Jacob Blake. He was an unarmed Black man who was shot. The shooting resulted in him becoming paralyzed, and it took place as he stood at the front door of his vehicle with his children in the back seat. For more on what is happening today, I want to bring in my colleague, NBC News correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, who's live in Kenosha, Wisconsin for us. Gabe?
Let me just pause right here. It don't take an hour to explain all that. I'm serious. It's going to take you an hour to explain why you're not going to bring charges. It didn't take an hour to explain all that. And I watched the press conference, a lot of it, and Kenosha County Prosecutor Michael Gravely sounded more like a defense attorney for the police officers than a prosecutor. Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely. He sounded more like a defense attorney for the police officers. But let's go back to Deadline White House. Also, African-American business owners, post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. And email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Okay, let's go back to this clip here.
Hey there, Nicole. Well, I want to paint the picture of where we are right now. Right behind me, you can see a police cruiser as well as several members of the Wisconsin National Guard. As you mentioned earlier, the governor has mobilized several hundred members, 500 troops from the Wisconsin National Guard as this city has been preparing for unrest over the last several days. But I want to get to what you just heard from the local district attorney. Yes, as you mentioned, no charges in this case, a case that has captured nationwide attention in 2020, a year that brought so much attention to social justice. And there was unrest following the death of George Floyd and also the shooting of Jacob Blake. This happened in August. Many of you might remember that very disturbing cell phone video that ricocheted really across the world, where Jacob Blake was shot 7 times. Now, what you just heard from the district attorney is that applying the law to this case, he believes that no charges should be filed in this case. However, there is still an investigation ongoing at the federal level as well. But this is what the Jacob Blake's family had expected this decision, Nicole, for the last several days. Last night, there was a protest here in Kenosha where Jacob Blake's father said that this is perhaps what he had expected. Late last night, the city council also voted to approve an emergency declaration that's expected to extend for 8 days now that this decision has been announced. But as you can see behind me, this is a city that really was brought to a standstill when this case happened back in August. Over the last several months, many of the businesses here in Kenosha, Wisconsin have remained boarded up. And as you can see behind me, there is a great concern here of whether anger might boil over once again in this community. But again, Nicole, the breaking news, the district attorney here announcing his long-awaited decision that no charges will be brought against any of the officers here in this case. The one who fired the shots, his attorney had previously said that he believed that Jacob Blake had a weapon on him, and that is why he fired those shots. But again, the district attorney now saying there's not enough evidence to convict any of those officers. Nicole?
Gabe Gutierrez live for us in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Thank you, my friend, for your reporting. Please jump back on if anything develops. Joining our conversation, MSNBC legal analyst and Georgetown Law School professor Paul Butler. Paul, listening to Gabe speak, a few questions come to my mind. Is there a standard being set that a police officer can have a suspect's shirt in his hand and fire 8 shots and no legal lines have been crossed?
Indeed, there is a standard being set, a standard of miscarriage of justice. Once again, another example of African Americans not receiving equal protection of law. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, and now Jacob Blake. Because we have a man shot 7 times in the back while his 3 children are watching. Mr. Blake was unarmed at the time that he was shot. So the district attorney's options range from attempted murder to reckless endangerment to assault. And here we have, once again, no legal consequences. So when you ask whether this sets a standard, criminal prosecutions are expressive. They're designed to deter future misconduct and to demonstrate respect for the humanity and dignity of victims. But when prosecutors fail to bring charges, that's expressive as well. What it means is that in the eyes of the government, what happened to Mr. Blake is not a crime. That someone can be shot in the back 7 times in front of their children while unarmed, and the person who did the shooting suffers no criminal consequences.
It seems that when you see the police officer holding Jacob Blake's T-shirt, he has control of Jacob Blake's body when he shoots him 7 times. Can you explain what that could usher in, that someone could literally be holding someone while they shoot them in front of their children?
So no cases against police officers are easy, and most do not result in convictions for murder or attempted murder. What was different about this case is that Mr. Jacob was shot in the back. It's harder for the officer to make the case that he reasonably feared for his life, which is the legal standard. We also know that none of the other officers on the scene discharged their weapons. That supports an inference that this officer may have been trigger happy. And then we have that harrowing videotape. When you watch that tape, you see a black man being hunted down by a police officer with a gun, and you don't see that man posing any threat, you can believe your own eyes.
Paul Butler, Gabe only made an oblique reference to it, but obviously Jacob Blake's shooting ushered in extremist violence in the streets. Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante who was celebrated by some right-wing hosts, took to the streets and acquired a weapon and strolled past police after fatally shooting other people in a melee, in a protest. What do we know about what impressions people of Kenosha have from all of these events?
Well, the accurate impression from these 2 events is that in Kenosha, Wisconsin, as in too many places around this country, there are 2 different sets of law. One for people of color, and especially African Americans, and another for police officers. And too frequently, police officers are held above the law. They don't have to follow the same rules as everybody else. If there's any encouraging news, It's that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, as candidates, met with Mr. Blake's family, and they expressed their outrage. And upon assuming the power of the presidency, they have the opportunity to make a difference. So far, we haven't seen any change despite this national reckoning. American cops kill about 1,000 people every year. They killed about 1,000 people in 2020. The Biden administration can get back in the business of civil rights. It can bring pattern and practice investigations against local police officers. The Obama administration brought 25 different investigations against local police departments. The Trump administration brought one.
Wow, that is just staggering. And it's a conversation that we will continue. Paul Butler, thank you.
Okay, so that was Georgetown law professor Paul Butler, who's actually an attorney and a former federal prosecutor. Okay, that's from January 5th, 2021 on Deadline White House with Nicole Wallace discussing this case. Now, very quickly here. So according to the prosecutor, Michael Gravely, Jacob Blake was not unarmed. Jacob Blake had a knife, according to the prosecutor, Michael Gravely. Now, keep in mind, there were no body cameras because Kenosha police officers don't have body cameras. If we go back to the reporting here from NBC News, and we'll post the link here to this article, you can read it in its entirety. It said that Blake had a knife. So on page 4 of the article, Gravely said multiple times Tuesday it was incontrovertible that Blake had a knife, or indisputable that Blake had a knife in hand when the incident occurred, and that Blake admitted to getting a knife. Officer Shesky told investigators that he was unsure whether Blake was going to kidnap or hurt the children in the car. Okay. At another point, he said that Blake said that Jacob Blake said that he could not remember if he had opened the knife or not. But still, it's a knife against a gun. And you had other officers on the scene. Still, it's a knife against a gun. I know the 21-foot rule. 21-foot rule is that it takes the average person, I think, is 1.5 seconds to advance 21 feet to you. So it's something they teach you the 21-foot rule when you're dealing with law enforcement, when you're dealing with people who go through gun training, things like this. It takes the average person about a second and a half, if I remember correctly, for the average person to move 21 feet. So if you're dealing with somebody with a knife, you have to keep that in mind. But still, you're dealing with multiple officers, and you're dealing with a knife against a gun. So it doesn't mean the knife is not deadly, but it's like, come on, let's be reasonable here. All right. So we're going to come back to this in just a second. African-American business owners, post the name of your business here in the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Also, visit workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com. Income Shifting Membership 2020 is the decade that people get their financial house in order. You see the value and understand the membership has its benefits. You now have access to a number of different things, financial strategies and things that can help you out financially. Tracking software, audit and proof tracking software, discount legal services, credit repair systems, etc. Visit 9-figure coaching from 9-figure coaches. A number of different things, tax saving tools and strategies. Visit workingwithjohnray.com, JOHN, workingwithjohnray.com for more information. Let them know you found out about this from the African History Network show. All right. So I want to go back to this article quickly here so we can wrap this up. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Georgia Senate race as well. So while It was previously believed that Jacob Blake, and let me go back, we have the article pulled up here as well. While it's previously believed that Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back, further examination of Blake's medical records found that he had 3 entrance wounds on his left side and 4 shots to his back, according to Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely. So it appears shot 3 times in the side, 4 times in the back. Still, to me, that's excessive. You after you shoot 2, 3 times, 4 times, you have to assess what's going on. You have to reassess the situation. So to me, that's excessive. I've seen incidences where you had white men with knives, waving knives at police officers, and they didn't get shot at all. So a defense attorney, Gravely said a defense attorney would argue that Officer Shesky followed his training and that the shots to the back were because Blake turned away. Quote, now we have no way of determining. Noble Ray, a retired police officer who works on national police reform, said it was a difficult case, but that his quote unquote ultimate obligation was to the truth. Okay, because Noble Ray was consulted for this case. He said, it is hard, it is harsh, it is difficult, it has a history of racism. Noble Ray said of the criminal justice system, quote, but we cannot work through this by just trying to find a decision that is comfortable with people. We've got to find the right decision. It's got to be grounded in truth. It's got to be grounded in the fact. It has to be grounded in facts. Okay. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers said in a statement that while the country has seen a movement to demand equality and justice over the past year, it is clear, quote, we have failed to deliver on these promises, both as a state and as a country, end quote. All right. He went on to say Jacob Blake's life has forever been changed and his kids witnessed violence no kid should ever see, experienced trauma no kid should ever endure, all while the world watched. And yet, when presented the opportunity to rise to this moment and this movement and take action to provide meaningful common sense reform to enhance accountability and promote transparency and policing our state, elected officials took no action, end quote. This is Governor Tony Evers, Democrat of Wisconsin. Okay. Check out the rest of this article here from NBCnews.com. No charges filed against Kenosha officers in Jacob Blake's shooting. Also, Washington Post has an article as well. No charges to be filed against Kenosha police officer who shot Jacob Blake. All right, so we'll probably talk more about this in the coming days. When we look at the Georgia Senate race, Vox.com is reporting that Democrat Raphael Warnock has won his Georgia Senate race, making history. Warnock's Georgia win is a blow to Republicans. Democrat Reverend Raphael Warnock has won a U.S. seat in Georgia, beating Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler in one of the state's pivotal January 5th runoff elections. The race was called by Vox.com's elections partner decision desk at 11:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When we look at, and we're going to look at the Washington Post here in just a second. Warnock's win is a historic one. He's the first African-American senator to be elected in Georgia, first African-American senator to be elected in Georgia, which fought on the side of the Confederacy in the American Civil War, in the U.S. Civil War. Warnock is the 11th African-American candidate ever elected to the U.S. Senate. And he will be one of just 3 African-American senators in the current Congress, along with Senators Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, and Senator Tim Scott, who is not a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, by the way. He's a Republican, Republican Tim Scott. Now, quote, Georgia is, all right, and how's everybody doing here? Quote, Georgia is the home state of Reverend Raphael Warnock. I'm sorry, Georgia is the home state of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Raphael Warnock told Vox.com, Vox News, in an interview this fall. Quote, it has long been the tip of the spear for change in America. And I think that through the movement that we're building, it once again will be a central focus for that change. Warnock's win signifies a potential sea change in Georgia politics. It comes a few months after Joe Biden became the first Democratic presidential candidate to win Georgia since 1992. House Democrats also flipped their only GOP-held district in 2020 in Georgia's 7th congressional district in Atlanta's suburbs. The other Senate runoff race between Republican Senator David Perdue and Democrat John Ossoff has not been called yet. So we'll see what happens with that one. Now, if we look at the reporting from the Washington Post, candidates are locked. Okay, so in Tuesday's runoff, 4.4 million votes were cast, exceeding the turnout voters in in Tuesday's runoffs. 4.4 million votes were cast. That's lower than the 68% turnout in November, the November 3rd, 2020 election, but higher than 54% turnout in Georgia's 2018 gubernatorial election. Now, we know Stacey Abrams gets a lot of this credit. LaTosha Brown of Black Voters Matter also gets a lot of this credit, but Stacey Abrams really worked with her organization to really educate African-American voters, and not just African-American voters, but really educate, especially African-American voters, on politics and how the policies that these people in elected office put into place impact every aspect of your life. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, this is what politics is. Exit polls show partisans sharply divided over confidence in Georgia's vote count as Trump repeatedly makes baseless claims about widespread voter fraud and a rigged election. The polls also show Democrats making gains among Hispanic and African-American voters. Let's see here. If we go back to the article from Fox.com, it talks about the ground game that they had. We knocked on our 2 millionth door yesterday. We've made 5 million phone calls, 3 million text messages to Georgia voters. Nsé Ufé, CEO of the voting rights group New Georgia Project, told Vox, quote, so they knocked on their 2 millionth door yesterday. They made, that would have been Monday, okay, knocked on their 2 millionth door, made 5 million phone calls and 3 million text messages. Okay, the voting rights group New Georgia Project. She went on to say, quote, we were all surprised with the results of the November election, and I maintain Georgia is a battleground state, end quote. Now, what does Reverend Raphael Warnock's win mean for Senate control and Biden's agenda? President-elect Joe Biden won the presidency on November 3rd, even though Donald Trump doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't want to really just come out and tell the truth. But he does not have much chance to deliver on the bold agenda he's proposed without buy-in from Congress. There are some things he could do with executive orders, but executive orders have limitations. There are changes he can make in the Department of Justice, changes, but also it's important to note his cabinet has to be approved by the Senate. His cabinet has to be approved by the Senate. Mitch McConnell has said that he will support moderate candidates, moderate nominations for the Senate, but not the radical nominations or the more left nominations. Biden is entering office facing multiple crises. The COVID-19 pandemic is worsening in the U.S., even as vaccines start to be delivered across the country, and millions of people are still out of work due to coronavirus-related layoffs. After months of partisan gridlock, Congress managed to pass a $900 billion economic relief package before the new year. Biden has said he wants more economic stimulus, but whether a future package can pass will largely be determined by which party controls the U.S. Senate. Democrats will have to contend with Senate Republicans no matter what. Democrats will have to contend with Senate Republicans no matter what. Winning both Georgia seats would give Democrats 50 seats in the Senate, plus Vice President-elect Kamala Harris serving as a crucial tiebreaker for simple majority votes. Okay. Now, what's important also to note, and I've talked about this before, is that now some outlets like NBC are saying the race is too close to call. The difference is about 35,000 votes right now. Warnock is up about 35,000 votes. Vox has called it for Warnock. You have 98% of the votes in. So it's looking really good for Warnock. The catch is that most bills need to clear a 60-vote supermajority in the U.S. Senate. Therefore, even if Democrats have control of the Senate, they still need around 10 Republican votes to get things done unless they vote to eliminate the filibuster and change Senate rules to a simple majority rule for legislation. A number of Democrats, including Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, staunchly oppose this. Joe Manchin is an idiot, though. Warnock's win means that Democrats will have to win over fewer Republican senators to get some basic work done. They now have one more reliable vote on routine but important Senate functions like confirming Biden's cabinet or judicial nominees. They now have one more reliable vote on routine but important Senate functions like confirming Biden's cabinet or judicial nominations, confirming his Secretary of Education, Secretary of Transportation, Attorney General. That's crucial. Federal bench nominations, because Donald Trump has gotten something like 225 federal judges confirmed, federal bench nominations, U.S. Supreme Court nominations. All that goes through the Senate, not the House of Representatives. This is one of the reasons why the U.S. Senate is so crucial. Okay, so check out that article from Vox.com. Democrat Raphael Warnock just won Georgia's Senate special election runoff and made history. Okay. All right. So, hey, if you all like this type of information, also you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me PayPal.me/the PayPal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, helps us to do more than 1 hour. Also going overtime, and we're here 6 nights a week instead of 1 night. For 4 years, we were doing Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF here in Detroit. We're still on Sundays, and as of October 12th, we're on Monday through Fridays, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight. So that helps us keep doing this. Also, all of my DVD lectures are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we have we have a lot of my lectures in bundle packs. We have the Africans who were here before Columbus. The Africans who were here before Columbus. It's an 8 DVD bundle pack. It includes double lectures I've done with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And a double lecture also did with Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, Professor Kaba Kamene, who's in the Hidden Colors documentaries, who dealt with the African presence in the Mississippi Valley and the Americas, etc. So check that out, the Africans who were here before Columbus. I want to go to this next story here quickly. Oh, also at the beginning of the show, we talked about Dr. Dre, who's in the ICU. Los Angeles Times. So the story is broken by TMZ. LA Times also has an article here that I think is updated. Dr. Dre admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after signs of a possible brain aneurysm. Dr. Dre was undergoing medical treatment Tuesday after being admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with a possible brain aneurysm. 2 sources familiar with his condition said the legendary rap artist and producer turned music mogul was considered to be in stable condition at the Los Angeles hospital after undergoing testing, according to one of the sources, who asked not to be named because the person was not authorized to discuss the medical matter. Now, Dr. Dre, according to a source, had been in the intensive care unit at one point. On Tuesday evening, he released a statement on his Instagram account, which read in part, quote, "I'm doing great and getting excellent care from my medical team. I will be out of the hospital and back home soon. Shout out to all the great medical professionals at Cedars," end quote. The medical emergency comes amid an escalating divorce battle with his longtime spouse, Nicole Young, who is seeking $2 million a month in spousal support and $5 million in lawyer fees. Sounds like she need to go get a job. All right, so go read this article from Los Angeles Times. Dr. Dre admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after signs of a possible brain aneurysm. All right. It reminds me of the Chris Rock stand-up routine. Okay, dealing with prenuptial agreements, etc. NAACP Legal Defense Fund responds to Trump's last-ditch attempt to disenfranchise Black voters. NAACP Legal Defense Fund responds to Trump's last-ditch attempt to disenfranchise Black voters. The president's focus on Georgia and Fulton County, more specifically, again, is consistent with his rhetoric since November 2nd, targeting the ballots cast by Black voters. NAACP Legal Defense Fund President Sherilyn Ifill said in a statement. This is an article from blackamericaweb.com, blackamericaweb.com. In response to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, NAACP Legal Defense Fund has expressed a similar sentiment regarding Trump's insidious effort to disenfranchise Black voters in the state of Georgia, many of whom galvanized their efforts to help Joe Biden win and flip the state blue for the first Democratic voting majority since the 1992 presidential election. So Sherilyn Ifill tweeted a statement from the Legal Defense Fund's Twitter account, January 4th, 2021. President Trump's last-ditch attempt to pressure the Georgia Secretary of State to overturn the unequivocal results of the presidential election places our democracy squarely at a crossroads. Now, all right. So after losing in the Electoral College, voted December 14th, and having lost scores of legal challenges, is about 60 court cases now, Donald Trump is now resorting to direct pressure in his attempt to remain in office and upend the will of the people, especially African-American voters. Okay, especially African-American voters. As his own administration has made clear, this was the most secure election in American history, with no evidence of widespread voter fraud. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund stands with Black Georgia voters and filed a suit in December regarding Trump's mass attempts at disenfranchisement. Quote, the president's focus on Georgia and Fulton County. Fulton County is the county, 90% of, so Atlanta is the state capital of Georgia. 90% of Atlanta is in Fulton County. All right. The quote, the president's focus on Georgia and Fulton County, more specifically, again, is consistent with his rhetoric since November 2nd, targeting the ballots cast by Black voters. His campaign's post-election legal maneuverings have repeatedly targeted communities with large percentages of Black voters: Atlanta, Detroit, where I am, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. And we are seeing much of the same rhetoric again in advance of this. We're seeing much of the same rhetoric again in advance of. We're seeing much of the same rhetoric again in advance of this week's critical U.S. Senate runoff election. This pattern of anti-democratic conduct is why the NAACP Legal Defense Fund filed suit against the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee, end quote, they said in the statement. Now, according to the New York Times, Trump has attempted to contact Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's switchboard 19 times since Election Day, 18 times before that January 2nd, 2021 call that lasted an hour and 2 minutes and was recorded. All right. Prior to that, he had tried to contact Brad Raffensperger's switchboard 18 times. Okay. And we know Trump said, quote, I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, end quote, Trump said during the conversation, according to a recording first obtained by the Washington Post. Now, Donald Trump lost the state of Georgia he actually lost Georgia by 11,779 votes. Critics of Trump's tactics are now urging the Fulton County District Attorney to investigate in what has been hailed as a clear violation of state and federal laws. However, the fight may be long and arduous. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger voiced he would be in support of the district attorney's involvement. So this is from blackamericaweb.com. All right, look, this is going to do it for us here. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. And also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. So remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.